We are here at the sanctuary of the wizard and of wisdom. And I designed this building with the focus on presenting this theoretical paradigm, how it evolved by studying Greek mythology, and how the mythology of the Greeks gave us a pattern that repeats and manifests in 6 roles that you sang with Melissa. And all of these murals here have 6 tiles. And you can read across there, you can read stress in the bottom, response up above, anxiety below, defense above, reversal, compromise, as the way of how the mind emotionally unfolds resolving conflict. And this is an interesting mural which has more than 6 tiles, and I call this the flag of the united metaphors of the world. And it is like an American flag, but it has the 2 dimensions of the conflict resolution process, as how the stars have now a location in the circles, and here are the dominant paradigms, and here are the submissive paradigms. Cooperative go clockwise, antagonistic go counterclockwise. And so you see the united metaphors by being put on a map, having dimensions, and recognizing, for instance, how American capitalism is cooperative and Russian communism is the bare antagonistic. How Judaism is cooperative to power and how Islam is antagonistic to power. How you can see Christianity being in a powerless position but moving towards power. And how yin-yang of the Hinduism is moving to powerlessness cooperatively. So this is a way of being able to illustrate that stories have dimensions. Now, besides having this kind of power positioning, the relational modality approach that can be quantified, the united metaphors have a stripe. A stripe is the relational 6-role process. And so the American flag has an opportunity to being translated as stars and stripes. And the stripes here present the transmission of this pattern from generation to generation. Uranus, Cronus, Zeus, and Athena, like Melissa dramatized them in their, my father tried to kill me. And this is where the child is experiencing the father trying to kill him. The defensiveness of the parent is experienced as oppression by the child. The child, with the help of the mother, assumes role assumption, and the father goes down, role reversal. And then the father dies, cursing his child, and the child becomes anxious. And the anxiety leads to defensiveness, which is affecting the next generation. So the Cronus here is castrating Uranus, then Zeus here is killing the father with the siblings, and then here he's cursing Athena, who is born all armed to defend herself from potentially having a child. And she chooses to be virgin because she's afraid of having a child. And then Eryxthonius comes around as the child who reconciles himself with his mother and builds a Parthenon for her. And so you have this kind of evolution from the generation of sky to the stars to Olympus and then to Acropolis, as the gods and the humans become less antagonistic, and you have at the end, you have a king who becomes the rabbi or the priest of the culture. So on this side, you see where I started with the Greek cosmogony, identifying that there is a pattern. And on this side, you see the cross-cultural study of the father-son relationship as different ways of presenting cultures. So the Greek dominance paranoid pattern is the person moving antagonistically to power. And here is a snake presenting, regarding the child as a potential murderer, murdering father, anticipating to be murdered, murdering children and murdered by children, and finally cursing the children to receive the same experience by their own children. So you see the six-role process as I translated it in the Greek mythology. But then you have the American Indian matriarchal culture, the Aztec culture, where the person is sacrificed. And here you have the feather serpent as the child moving downwards and upwards and being potential victim of destruction, scheming for others' destruction. Spelled a little bit odd because my artist was a person from Norway. His English was a little defective, so there is some kind of modification of language. Then you have the Judaic equalitarian pattern moving to dominance cooperatively. You have the Oriental submissive pattern moving to powerlessness cooperatively. So you have here the cross-cultural study of the father-son relationship, and up here you have the pattern of the Greek gods being translated into science. So my sense is a flag of the united metaphors, which is what we're acquainted with, the American flag, which has stars and stripes without any particular psychoanalytic dimension to it. Now, each one of these murals is presenting a story along the six-role process. And what is interesting on this side is to see the Greek creation stories amplifying the six-role process of each one of these life cycles of generations. So if you would like to come over here, you can see more clearly these dynamics of the six roles. So here you're seeing the six-role process that Melissa was singing about: stress, response, anxiety, defense, reversal, compromise, and rest, the discovery of morality. And I'm trying to include here not only the Greek paradigm, but also the Judaic paradigm and the Hindu paradigm. So say three creation stories reveal how the mind proceeds from chaos to order, from conflict to resolution. And I'm presenting the Greek cosmogony, the Oriental yin-yang, and the Bible's 6 days of creation as identical structures. As a matter of fact, the Hindu chakras, there are 6 chakras along your spinal cord, and the 7th is on top of your head. So this number 6 is a magical number that intuitively people identified with something spiritual. And so here you have the child being oppressed. This is Cronus being protected by his mother, Gaia, and this is Uranus, and this is Cronus oppressed by the father. And here is the mother giving a side to the child, and this is Cronus castrating his father, and out of his genitals sprang Venus. Venus is his sexuality coming to freedom. But then anxiety, dying father Sky, cursed Cronus to be killed in his turn by his children, the Olympians. And so Cronus panicked at the sight of his children. And here you see now Cronus eating his children, and his terrified wife is giving him now a stone, and she's holding on to Zeus. Now these are stories for children, right? But the wise people of Greece believe this as the truth. And these are stories. So now the eventual situation is that Zeus gives an emetic potion to his father, and he throws up Poseidon and Hades, and all three of them gang at Cronus. And Cronus curses Zeus to get it from his children. So what you're seeing here is Athena coming out of Zeus's head. And then eventually, your story of Erichthonius building a temple for his mother. And so you have conflict resolution at the 5th generation with creation of a religion. And this is what inspired me to analyze behavior as a six-role process that is universal. Now from here we can go to the other side, where you see the differences between cultural ways of resolving conflict. So this is the mural that complements the other one. There you have the 6-role process, and here we have the moral alternatives. And the moral alternatives are illustrated here with the Messianic and the Judaic type of resolutions and how they differ one from the other. So here we're introducing the Mosaic Law with principles of science: passivity transformed to activity, antagonist to cooperation, alienation to mutual respect. The 10 Commandments have a moral direction: do not kill, do not steal, do not commit adultery, which is moderation rather than just, but it's power with moderation. And so these are the principles that are endorsed by the religion, but there are different ways of interpreting them. And they have led to the Christianity, to Judaism, and to Islam as modifications of the way of being powerful, cooperative, or antagonistic, and alienated versus respectful. So my analysis is based on 2 phenomena of physics. Here you have the issue of formal operations, the alternatives that we talk about, the scale, and here you have the energy of the pendulum. And so the energy is the resolution process, and the principles of the equilibrium scale give us the solution of crucifix, which is passivity, cooperation, which is different from the Judaic, where you have here the 4 children of the Passover ceremony asking what is different about this night and identifying the 4 children with their attitudes. The one is wise, the other one is wicked, and then there are the silent kids. So you have the wrestling and identifying personality typology. And here you have the Islamic story. Muhammad espoused dominance as the relational choice attributed to Ishmael, the firstborn of Abraham and Hagar. And it talks about the anger that Hagar had in terms of being in the desert and the child having that kind of antagonistic and dominant relationship. So instead of having submissiveness in Christianity, you have dominance here. But something in between is what makes Judaism one of more openness and variation of the resolutions. And psychology doesn't know about these relational modalities, but Judaism discovered personality typology. And this is the personality typology that now we're translating as relational modalities, modifying the transference concept of Freud into something that is meaningful with qualitative description. Now from here, I would like to share with you how creativity can be measured and helpful to understand oneself. So this is my story. I call it my metaphors myself, as a way of myself discovering how to use creativity to identify my own personal pattern. Again, here you see stress, response, anxiety, defense, reversal, compromise. And it starts here with my childhood conflictual memory of the war of the metaphors. And you can see here the Germans, you can see here the ancient Greeks, Judaism, Christianity. You can see the aeroplanes of British people. And here's the family in a cave trying to save our lives from all of the conflicts. Now, as I'm presenting here stress, I'm moving to my response, my personal choices. And here I am, a kid like Pinocchio with his long nose, running away from the killer whale of metaphors. And so this is my response, hiding with an assumed name. I was Nicholas Theologopoulos rather than being Albert Levis. And feeling that I'm lying at the age of 6 when you're supposed to be honest, and feeling conscious about that. And then eventually the whale absorbs both Geppetto and Pinocchio. And this is the killer whale stomach with a dialogue between Pinocchio and Geppetto. And Pinocchio says to the father, I know how to become a real child rather than being a puppet by understanding the conflict resolution process. And so anxiety is usually what you have here, but also in the range of anxiety you also have hope. And here you have the animal metaphor test, which reveals how you resolve conflict. And it has Oedipus with a branch of olive tree to the Sphinx and said, I know the answer to your riddle, but I don't want to tell you because I don't want you to jump off the cliff. And so this is an interesting alternative to Freud's analysis of the unconscious, saying that all of us want to sleep with our mothers and destroy our fathers. And so that is a Greek hubris, but it's not the universal unconscious. We like power, but we also want to moderate our power so we do not have difficulty going to sleep. And so the idea is, this is the matriarchal woman who is fight and flight. The Sphinx is the woman from matriarchy who is very quick not to resolve conflict, but fight or flight. And the idea is our science is trying to deal with the conflicted person by saying mutual respect. So this is my way of saying mutual respect is more important than sex. Conflict resolution is the driving force. Now, guess what this is? This is my vision, my role reversal of being here with you, having the family, entertaining the people, and this is my family. This is Max. There is Oliver. There is Tylee, and there is Melissa with her guitar. And all of us are, in a way, in a training center. And this is my brother who helped me with the mortgage, and this is my mother who was our original innkeeper at the farm. Now, this is a dream come true. This is the impossible dream that we have today.
Excuse me, how long ago did you do this particular one?
One of the original ones, which was back in the 80s. And here is, you see, the war of the metaphors comes to conflict resolution as the reconciliation of metaphors. And see what it is. It's the fiddler on the roof of this sanctuary. Before it has a roof, it was just walls. It evolved over the years. But it is the fiddler, which is Judaism and morality and wisdom over reason, the Greek temple being rationality and science. And guess what? All around here you have the metaphors, all the flags of the world which is conflicted with the paradigms coming as a halo around embracing the reconciliation of art and science, morality and reason. And so this is defining who I am. And this is defining my drive away from the Holocaust, which destroyed so many people, both Jews and Germans and all the nations, and destroyed Europe, and is still destroying Syria, and still destroying the world peace, and moving away from these metaphors to an integration of morality and science. This is my moral science project from the beginning. Now, from here we'll go to another mural which integrates the cultural evolution of paradigms to talk about family relations, again as a process of conflict resolution, stress, response, anxiety, defense, reversal, compromise. And it starts with matriarchy, the powerful mother destroying her counterpart, and that point was the daughter, but anybody who is also in the submissive position. And you know about how in Mexico there is a big scandal about the disappearance of 47 students. This is the same way of exterminating your rival. And the issue now is drug cartels reproducing the inhumanity of the old Aztec tribes, which are eliminating the counterpart, sacrificing them on top of the pyramid. So we begin with matriarchy as intensity of power between the genders, and then the Sphinx is neutralized in Greece with the idea of killing the Sphinx and getting a bit in trouble with hubris. And Greece discovers gradually logic and math. But before we get to the Greek resolution completely, this is the beginning of the reversal of power. The eagle of the matriarchy is becoming the sphinx that's going to die in patriarchy. But in India, you have now Shiva stepping on the inner child. You have, instead of dominance, you have submissiveness. This is powerful Kali who has 6 arms, and you see the dominance of the woman. But here is also the idea of cooperation and the idea of stepping on the inner child and becoming respectful of the woman as the sacred cow, or as the woman which has 6 arms. Then comes the religions that men again ascend over women in the sacredness of snakes, flying dragons, feathered serpents, identified with worship of the sun and the single male god. So this is the defense. You know, we have women powerful in bottom and men correcting that power play. And what you have in Mexico is the eagle losing its feathers and the snake getting them as the feathered serpent. Now, the outcome of this power is diminished with the Gilgamesh epic, which is the woman with the apple of temptation. And here you have Abraham, who is, testing the relationship with maybe the women by saying, let's sacrifice Isaac. And here he's testing the submissiveness, the cooperation. Is the boy at the mercy of the mother or at the mercy of the father? And this sacrifice is averted, but what is evolving out of this is a family that has a value system of respect between father and son. And here you have the messianic religions testing out who is more powerful in the woman-man relationship. And you have the 2 messianic religions, Christianity and Judaism, evolving 2 alternative ways of resolving conflict in the family. And here is our unresolved world today, in which you have the dominant antagonistic Islamic culture that believe in terrorism and that everybody else is an infidel. And here you have, the issues of personalities that evolving to resist terrorism, like Donald Trump, and the Islamization of America, where we have now to resolve the conflicts with antagonistic dominance by correcting Donald Trump's self-righteousness. And America and the world learning about psychology of power. And this is where our challenge to intervene by creating an awareness of morality being science rather than religion, and being able to introduce that in the analysis of both psychology and also religion, and being able to develop neutrality about this moral as power management. Melissa talked to us about the apples. And here you see the 4 ways of defining the apple. So here you have the analysis of the same cultures as 4 different ways of dealing with power, managing power. So the Judaic metaphor is the apple is forbidden. And you see the idea of a woman being available, but a person knowing his limits. Like Odysseus, who restrained himself on the mast of the boat, but he jumped into the water soon after. And here you have the apple of the Greeks, which is inscribed to the fairest, creating competition among the 3 beautiful ladies, which eventually ends up with the Trojan War. And the Trojan War is really how to restrain women and make them into faithful wives like Penelope. So you see the resolution there. Here you see the apple of the Aztecs, which is the person being sacrificed on the pyramid and his heart being given to the gods. And here you see the apple of India, the cooperation of the sacredness of the woman. And the men, instead of hurting the cow, they're hurting themselves. This is what is asceticism. So we get the flavor of how the sexual process is manifested in mythology, in religions, in cultures, and also in the personal creativity for self-discovery. Now, the rest of the murals here are generated by people who are using creativity for self-discovery and therapy. And I don't want to go into all these case studies, but you have here a testimonial on how creativity becoming now measurable and captured in a meaningful way, interpreted by the person, creates insights and validation, both the relational modalities and also the conflicts of the person. In this case here, you see a very tragic story where you see the childhood conflicts as an induction, passivity, antagonism, alienation phase, and you see the correction of that in her metaphors about her activities. It's kind of tragic and pathetic to just look at this, but here you see what is the family system in balloons, and she's presenting this kind of separateness and alienation in this family, and how everybody has a string that is separate, and how the strings are united here, and how the child balloon is inserted into the mother's balloon, whereas she as a child was a black balloon far away from the parental balloons. Here you see the mask of serenity as the cover-up of feelings. I hide my feelings to appear unaffected. I have done so for a long time. I don't recognize my feelings anymore. And here you see the feelings behind the mask, all these traumatic experiences, illustrating anger, frustration, confusion, sorrow, hopelessness, emptiness. The heart is labeled beauty with mishaps. Here you see the mother slapping her across the face while she's sitting on the toilet in front of her father who is outside. And here you have a dream of her second husband hurting the first husband who is violent while he's sitting on the toilet with his blue jeans down. And you see how the symbolic language is transformed in the unconscious to present mastery rather than passivity and trauma. Here you see her being abused by her first husband, and here you see how she's protecting herself from the mother, who is a stepmother, who is pointing out the first husband to attack her. Here you see how the mother abused her. Lion, you rotten mud, you do what I tell you. I'll eat you up, I'll crush you, little bones, etc. Papi says, no, no, please don't hurt me. I'll do anything you say. Please stop, you're hurting me. And so she's a puppy, and this is her mother, presenting the intensity of conflict. And here you see her as a mother with a puppy in her reciprocal kind of corrective position in her metaphors. And so you have the abuse as passivity or conflict and the resolution. Here she's being abused by her brother, another stepchild, and here you have her rescuing an animal from the garbage. And so what I'm pointing out here is the relational correction of trauma. In this other case study, you have the translation of the symbolic language as the directionality of the images corresponding to physics of the pendulum oscillation. So if the animals go to the right, it's like the pendulum moving to power. If the animals go to the left, it's like they're correcting back the position. And if they're facing forward, then you see more of the anxiety. And so I'm using this to show the physics of the pendulum interpreting the directionality of the figure. So if you look at the person's metaphors, and they have two animals going to the right, you'll see in them aggression. You see them breaking rules. If you see them facing to the left, they represent correction of power. And this happens to be a seminarian who came to analysis before joining the seminary. And he's presenting himself, his damaged identity as the youth has become bearded, gruff, paradoxically labeled Mona Lisa. A bug on this masked cheek reflects a further blemish of his identity, his impression that he has become effeminate and evil. And here you see, his kind of family situation with a lot of guilt presented in it. And anxiety reflects hope that the smiling and winking face magically gets rid of the sense of guilt as the bug is descending below. This is the excitement of two birds flying in the direction, and it talks about a situation of seduction. The imbalance of the two animals direct to the right corresponds to a person seeking power or taking liberties and experiencing anxiety. His eagles transgress. The top eagle says, "Let's fly over there, this is fun." Huh? And the bottom eagle says, "Yeah, this is fun. Let's go over there, but it is kind of dangerous." And so I can continue giving you more information about this, but I want you to just get basically an idea that we have a way of confirming science by using these metaphors and seeing the need for conflict resolution, restructuring the metaphors and putting them in a continuum. And so here you see the guilt, and here you see the correction. The two left-directed animals reflect introspection and depression. The prodigal horse didn't want to plow and followed the evil horse to another field where food was plentiful without having to work. But this food was poisoned his insides. Repenting, this horse returns home to plow. And so you see the correction of this morally directed seminarian coming to deal with his own guilt about his homosexual activities, which was the blemish on his cheek. And so you see also how the art brings to the surface some conflicts inside that were bothering him about being a seminarian, or how he was trying to choose holiness of morality of religion to compensate for his guilt feelings. So we continue. This is a Holocaust survivor's story, which comes together in 3 sessions of doing the artwork. And the emphasis of this story is how the art helped her in no time at all to process the emotions that she had hidden for many years, her guilt as a survivor, and how she learned about herself, and she was able to resolve some of her issues of guilt and anger. And we can continue with differentiating the dominant from the submissive. And these are 2 murals of long-term therapy where a person does, for instance here, 5 books of conflict resolution stories. And in each book you have an accomplishment of shifting of a conflict to its resolution. The first book is admitting hurt. The second is taking risks but feeling threatened. Next one is passion is frightening and makes boundaries desirable. And here she is trapped and reconciled. And finally she's feeling accepted, respectful and inspired. Of course, there's a lot of detail here, but all I want to convey is how creativity leads to self-discovery and resolution. And this is a very beautiful graphic presentation of a woman with an eating disorder, and how she evolves through metaphors of only doing her animal metaphor over and over again, how she evolves to resolve her issues. And from a woman who has a problem here with dealing with relations, And this is, the animals turning their backs both to each other. And this is a woman who cannot express her feelings. And she's trying to, in her mask, present a perpetual smile, shutting out sadness with a smile and outrageous makeup. And here you see behind the mask a blackout, unable to express emotions. She was always unable to stop eating. So the mouth becomes the black hole. And what is in her heart is the moat. The moat separates the true feelings of anger and sadness from the happy surface of bunnies and flowers and sunshine. So this is what she shows to the world, and she's holding all the bad feelings inside. And this moat issue becomes an issue here of the difficulty expressing her feelings. And you see, as this is growing as a theme in a phase of her therapy, eventually she's able to cross the boundaries of expression. And then another phase, a setback, she's a vulture and a snake. Struggling, the one is vulture is the eating disorder, bulimia, and the snake is anorexia, and how they're blending together, evolving with a struggle towards the end of this, with the tiger coming in to kill both the vulture and the snake, and her new identity developing. And then how here she's finally coming to deal with the particular emotions she has in many different relations. And you see the different relations manifested with the dialogue between the animals. And at the very end, she says, neither of us express anger. We have to tell each other when, why we are angry. People can have disputes and be friends again. So you see a very submissive person who finally is able to find her capacity to talk about her feelings, and then it's dissolving the problem of eating disorder. And that corrects her. So it's the emotional imbalance that creates the symptoms of a disorder. So this is, a way of introducing a technology into psychotherapy, and this technology expedites therapy, expedites the release of emotions, introduces insight without having to have long-term therapy and dependency needs, and having the complexity of problems of the psychoanalytic treatment, which is too expensive anyway, so it's not something that is realistically affordable today. So thank you very much. This is the completion of our Seeing the Murals exhibit, the interesting aspect being the 6-role process and the alternative modalities. And coming back to see the 6-role process and the alternative modalities, you saw it here in the American flag as the stars and the stripes. There you see it as the 6-role process correct in transforming religions, and there you see the 4 apples. So you have the 6-role process and the relational modalities. Now, we'll skip what is the exhibit on the outside, but the exhibit on the outside is about understanding the Wizard of Oz story as having 4 metaphors, and these 4 metaphors correspond to the 4 disciplines of psychology. The one on the front is about the yellow brick road, and that is about the science of the conflict resolution process. On this side, it's about relational modalities, the 4 characters of the Wizard of Oz. On that side, it is about the killing of the witch, which is about utilizing creativity for self-discovery. And on this side is about Oz as the issues of dealing with religion, dealing with morality as an alternative to religion. So from here we'll go to the gallery. Thank you.